Hey, welcome back to Clean Cut, where we can talk about the truth about just about anything, as long as we use logic and common sense.
This season, we're looking at the miracles of Jesus to see what they can tell us about God and His promises to the faithful. Last time, we talked about walking on water, how Jesus demonstrated God's ability to enable accomplishments that we can only imagine. Today, calming the weather. Once again, there are three accounts of this happening, this time found in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. As with the walking on water, this begins with Jesus dismissing a crowd and the disciples setting sail. However, this time, Jesus is with them in the boat. And when they were sailing, he slept. And there came down a storm of wind upon the lake, and they were filled, and were in danger. And they came and awaked him, saying, Master, we perish. But he, arising, rebuked the wind and the rage of the water, and it ceased, and there was a calm. Luke 8:23-24. The details are sparse in Luke's account. Jesus was asleep, and they woke him, and then he commanded the bad weather to stop, and it stopped. And when he entered into the boat, his disciples followed him, and behold, a great tempest arose in the sea, so that the boat was covered with waves, but he was asleep. Matthew 8:23-24. The storm, according to Matthew, is so severe that the waves actually covered the boat, and Jesus managed to sleep through it. It seems likely, therefore, that it was a boat with a separate closed-off hull below the deck, since otherwise the water would have filled the boat quickly, and they would have sunk almost immediately before any description of the problem could be made, or at least been doomed to sink even after the storm stopped. Of course, it's possible that this only happened a couple of times, and they woke Jesus before things got that bad, but it seems less likely, and it's interesting to think about. And they came to him, and awaked him, saying, Lord, save us, we perish. And Jesus saith to them, Why are you fearful, O ye of little faith? Then rising up, he commanded the winds and the sea, and there came a great calm. But the men wondered, saying, What manner of man is this? For the winds and the sea obey him. Matthew 8:25-27. Jesus asks the disciples why they're afraid and scolds them for lacking faith. This is confusing at first, since it definitely seems like they would have drowned if Jesus hadn't fixed the problem, but you'll notice that Jesus doesn't ask them why they woke him up. He only asks them why they were afraid. I think it's possible that he wouldn't have criticized them at all if they'd woken him more calmly and with confidence in his abilities rather than fear. And sending away the multitude, they take him, even as he was, in the ship, and there were other ships with him. Mark 4:36. Mark presents the longest of the three accounts, and we can already see some details that aren't present in the others. For instance, that other ships were setting sail along with the ship the disciples used. I think this is interesting, since John Mark, the man who wrote this gospel, traveled with St. Peter for a long time and probably heard this story right from his lips. And there arose a great storm of wind, and the waves beat into the ship, so that the ship was filled. And he was in the hinder part of the ship, sleeping upon a pillow. And they awake him, and say to him, Master, doth it not concern thee that we perish? Mark 4:37-38. Of course, the ship would have sunk if it was completely full of water, so filled probably means that the water had begun to fill the ship's hull, and that the ship was starting to sink into the water because of it. Mark also describes this as the waves beating into the ship, meaning that the ship was being jostled violently by them. Jesus also has a probably very wet pillow in this account, so he's not just sleeping on the deck itself. And rising up, he rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was made a great calm. And he said to them, Why are you fearful? Have you not faith yet? And they feared exceedingly. And they said one to another, Who is this, thinkest thou, that both wind and sea obey him? Mark 4:39-40. Here, Jesus asks them about their fear after the weather is calmed, which seems more likely than in the middle of a violent storm, since the disciples would be better able to hear him then. We also see the precise commands he used to bring this miracle about. Jesus has power over the weather and is able to bring about good weather in order to save people endangered by storms and natural disasters. Bad weather and natural disasters threaten to endanger people in this life, but for the saints in heaven, those kinds of dangers are a thing of the past. Next time, the multiplication of food.
That's all for now, so keep asking questions, and thanks for watching.